What's going on, guys? Joe McCall here with another epic, awesome real estate investing mastery podcast. What's up, guys? So this is crazy. Third podcast I've done today, and I really love doing this. I love talking to people that are doing a lot of deals, making things happen. And this is a topic that we've never talked about before, but I'm seeing a lot more people talk about it. You're seeing a lot of chatter on YouTube and Facebook groups. People talking about novations. What are novations? And I didn't know what they were until just a few months ago. And I'm like, I've never done one, but but maybe a little differently. But we have a guest, Corey Geary on, where we're going to be talking about how he does novations. He is the leading expert on novations. And I don't think he's invented the strategy, but he's perfected it. And he has what he calls the Novation Nation. And there's a lot of people that are coming to him. He's been doing this a long time. He's done lots and lots of these deals. We're going to talk about what novations are, and then how do you make more money doing these kinds of deals. And it's basically a strategy where you can take old leads that you probably would just throw away and turn them into novations and sell them and make just as much money, if not more, than you would have with a regular wholesale deal. Okay. So we're going to be talking about novations with Corey Geary. I want to tell you guys something here real quick. I'm looking for more reviews. If you would go with your cell phone, I got some books I want to give you for free if you leave me a review. All right. If you go to reviewjoe.net from your cell phone, reviewjoe.net, and let me know what you think of these podcasts. I'm looking for honest reviews. If you don't like them, let me know. But at the thank you page, you're going to be taken to a page after you leave the review that will give you some free books and a free class that I did on wholesaling lease options. So if you could, I'd really appreciate it. I'm just looking to get more reviews. Let me know what you think of the podcast, of my YouTube channel, of the books, everything that I've done. I'd love to get your feedback on it. And if you go to reviewjoe.net, you can leave me a video review. So I'm looking for video reviews. It's going to ask you to put in your name and email. It's going to confirm that you are who you are. And I'm not just sending these free gifts to only good people who leave good reviews. But it goes to anybody. So even if you leave me a bad review, you'll still get my books. But I'd appreciate you go to reviewjoe.net and check that out. I think on the thank you page after you do the review, it'll give you a couple books and a video series I did on wholesaling lease options. So I'd really appreciate it. Again, and you need to do it from your phone because it's going to ask you for permission to see your camera. So I'd prefer to get video reviews, but you can also just leave a text review if you want. Reviewjoe.net. Reviewjoe.net is a sponsor for today's podcast. So now it sounds real official. Okay. Let's bring Corey on. Corey, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, Joe? How you doing, my friend?
Not much. Corey from the Novation Nation.
Novation Nation, baby.
Love it. And we're going to be talking about what novations are, because I would bet you most people don't know what novations are, but they've been hearing people talk about it. It's becoming more of a popular strategy, and it's a great way to make a lot more extra money on your deals that you would normally pass on or throw away. And we're going to talk about the 7 steps to 7 figures using novations. There's a lot of investors out there like you who have made a ton of money doing novations, and it's one of your main focuses, if not your main focus. Is that right?
That is correct. We're a novation company first, wholesale second.
Oh, so cool. I'm looking forward to talking about this. Okay, so Corey, talk about how you got started in the business real quick.
So I got started the business back in 2016. I was a blackjack dealer at a casino. Yeah, I had to save some money up. If anyone knows the industry of casino, we make a lot of tips. And so I was able to save up some tip money, over 6 figures. And I used to watch that show, Flip or Flop. And, with Tarek Al Musa. And I was sitting there with my girlfriend at the time, and she knew I had some money saved up. She literally says, "Why don't you flip a house so I can list it?" I was like, "I don't know. Why don't I flip a house?" It seems easy enough. 30 minutes, you make $80,000. So literally I'm on my morning run the next day, and I see one of those bandit signs. It says fix and flip, buy price $250, ARV $350, something to that nature. I stopped on my run. I called that phone number. I bought that house, took me 6 months, and I made $8,000. That was my very first real estate deal.
You only made $8,000.
Only made 8 grand.
That's nothing to sneeze at, but like,
it was a win.
Yes.
It was a win. Unfortunately, later in my journey, I didn't, it wasn't so great. My second deal, I bought from a wholesaler. I was going to RIAs, flipped that, took maybe 3 months, made 20 grand. On my third deal, I ended up partnering with somebody with the casino, and we bought 4 houses all at once. And I ended up not using my previous contractor because he sucked. But unfortunately, the new contractor we got was even worse, and he took us to the cleaners. And between me and my partner, we lost $250,000.
Holy smokes! What year was this?
This is back in 2017, the beginning of 2017.
You lost $250,000. Ouch.
250 grand. So I lost all my 401k money that I pulled out of the casino. I lost my savings. I lost my previous flip money, and it kind of set me back to zero. And I was like, well, man, what am I going to do? I didn't want to give up. So I literally went on Google and I typed in how do wholesalers get deals. I figured I got to figure out how do wholesalers get their deals. And guess who popped up? Sean Terry.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
So I went down that rabbit hole and bought his course, Flip to Freedom, and started putting out bandit signs, started doing a little bit of direct mail. And, it took me about, 8 to 10 months. I got my first deal. And that was when, I started wholesaling.
Wow.
And
so it took you 8 to 10 months. Is that what you said?
To get my first wholesale deal.
Wow. Why did it take so long?
I don't know, man. Maybe because I'm in Phoenix.
Well, okay. That's one reason.
I'm in the guru capital of the world, but, and plus, we were not good at talking to sellers. We're not good at negotiating. We weren't good, at the processes that we were trying to do. And we were newbies. But yeah, it took me a few months to get that first deal. But once I got the first deal and I sold that deal to the wholesaler who I bought my previous deals from for my flips, sold it to him and for $10,000. And I think my second deal came like a month later, and then it started kind of like just snowballing from there.
So even in the competitive market, it took a while, but once you started building the momentum.
It was before I went nationwide. I went nationwide in the beginning of 2020. I was probably doing about 10 deals a month here locally.
Okay. Wow. And what was your main marketing channel?
Main marketing channel was cold calling.
Okay.
When I really started getting into wholesaling, I created a call floor in my living room of my house. So I took a bunch of cubicles, set them up in my living room. Married? No.
Okay. All right. That explains it.
No, single, and work in the casino. And so I just hire college kids to come in and cold call for me. And so basically, I just wanted the cheapest marketing channel I could possibly get. And I'd go out and lock the deals up belly to belly with the sellers. And I did that for a good year and a half. And
wow.
The HOA ended up getting really mad at me. And they thought I was having like parties every single day because I had a bunch of cars parked in front of my house. So we eventually had to get an office. And when I got the office, though, I ended up ditching the cold calling. And then that's when I went heavy PPC marketing.
Okay, so now you're breaking up a little bit, so I'll help if it's breaking up. But you're doing mainly PPC now nationwide.
That's correct.
So PPC, are you talking about Google ads, Bing, Facebook ads, or all the above, or what?
Google ads mainly. We've done a little bit of Bing in the past, but we mainly just do Google ads.
I was talking to an investor just yesterday in Phoenix, who's getting most of his deals from Bing, just because. And he's spending as much as he can, but it's so hard with Google PPC inside of the Phoenix metro area to get any leads because you're competing against the big hedge funds.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. So what made you decide to go nationwide?
From just being in multiple masterminds and hearing other people that have been doing it. Nick Perry was one of them. Sean Terry was another one. And Sean Terry is now a good friend of mine. And just hearing people scaling their business via nationwide. And so in early 2020, I made the leap, went nationwide. I made a huge mistake. I recommend nobody doing this. I turned off all my local marketing efforts and I turned on nationwide marketing efforts, and I ran in the red for 3 months before we started monetizing deals and started getting, so it really sucks. I run a coaching and mentorship group, and I recommend everybody in that group, when you're going this nationwide model, just get an arm of your business. Don't shut down what's already working. If you got something working that's paying the bills and feeding you, don't turn that off to go nationwide. Dabble in nationwide first and slowly get into it. And so that was a big mistake that I made in 2020.
Now, in your Google PPC, were you just targeting the entire nation, or were you?
That's correct.
These certain cities, these certain markets.
The entire nation. Now we have a little bit of a different strategy. We're targeting all the major counties that hedge funds buy in. But when we first went nationwide with PPC, it was just a whole United States. I blocked, I took out a few states, like I took out West Virginia, took out the Dakotas. So there was a few select states I took out. But other than that, we're just completely nationwide.
You kept California and New York states.
I love California. I've not done a deal in California under 50,000.
Profit.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Yeah. All right. So what are novations? Talk about novations.
The legal terminology of novations means replacement of contracts. So where in wholesaling, you're staying in the middle. It's an assignment. You're an assignment of contract from AB to BC, which is your investor. Novations, you're taking the AB contract and you're trumping it with a BC, novating the contract to your end buyer, which we novate to retail buyers who are getting financing, like conventional FHA and VA financing. So we list our novations on the MLS to retail buyers.
Interesting. So who is the buyer then? No, I mean, sorry. In the contract with the end buyer, who is the seller? Who's signing that contract?
The seller is still we act as seller for starters. So in the upfront paperwork, we're getting an attorney in fact signed, not a power of attorney. Some people teach the power of attorney route. I don't like it. We can go deep on that, but it's not what we like. We do the attorney in fact, and it allows us to act as seller on the MLS. So we can sign all the listing docs as the seller. We can sign all the offers coming in as the seller. And so we're the ones selling the property, acting as seller because we have the attorney in fact via the MLS.
So it's not a power of attorney, it's an attorney in fact, which is different. We don't need to go down the rabbit trail, but
it's different. Yep.
But it's
not
important.
nearly as threatening or have as many teeth. There are some people in the industry that teaches novations besides me, and they teach the power of attorney way. And it's just not the way we like doing it. And homeowners hate it. When they see a power of attorney and they're signing with a notary, they get real scared of it. They think, oh, what are you trying to do? Take over my property? And are you scamming us? It's a very threatening document, a power of attorney, where our attorney in fact is not threatening at all. It's a one-page document. We don't even call it the attorney in fact on the document, and you can get it signed via DocuSign or e-sign. You don't have to have a notary sign it.
Do you have to have an attorney to send this or do this for you, or is your contract good nationwide?
Our contracts are good nationwide. So I've had attorneys draft up my paperwork. I spent thousands of dollars to get this paperwork perfected. Obviously, I always recommend that everybody consult your attorney because I'm not an attorney. I've done my due diligence with my attorney, but always do your own due diligence too. But yeah, they work nationwide. We've done deals, all the way from Washington down to Florida.
Okay, so how did you find this strategy and why did you need it?
So I was in a mastermind, wholesaling masterminds out in Florida, and there was a guy who did a presentation on it in his business. He was doing it locally. Most people do this model locally, and he was talking about how he made $2.2 million in 2019, and half of it was novations. And I'm like, what the heck is a novation? And he did the whole presentation on it. I was like, huh, that's interesting. And because at the time, we were, so it's been 2020 because at the time we had just pivoted to nationwide wholesaling. And one of our biggest problems is finding investor buyers in these rural markets when we're nationwide. We were maybe, closing 1 out of 5 deals. So it was very problematic when we went nationwide. I'm thinking, man, maybe I can use this novation model to list these properties on the MLS to retail buyers. Because what's the biggest buyer pool out there? It's the MLS. It's retail buyers. There's more retail buyers than there are investors. Yeah. So that's where I really thought, man, maybe this could fix that pain point in my company. And so I took it upon myself to search out as many people who was teaching it as possible. There's a few people teaching, and not a lot. And it's very expensive. Some of these guys, what they're charging, all the way up to 20 grand, some of them for a course. And so I went and I just kind of picked out what I liked about their model, compiled my own model, and went nationwide with it. Obviously, we had a lot of speed bumps, a lot of things that we had to kind of figure out on our own and tweak. But, over the last couple of years, I feel like we kind of really cracked the code on going nationwide with Novations.
All right. So let me just be clear on kind of what it is then. You find a seller who's got a house to sell, and you want to wholesale it. So you give them a contract to buy it, and then like an addendum, an attorney. What'd you call it again?
Attorney in fact. So on the front end, you get your normal purchase agreement, like normal. We do have a novation clause in there in our paperwork.
Okay.
You get a novation and indemnification agreement. This agreement indemnifies the seller from anything happening. It indemnifies you, and then instructs legally exactly what you're doing, and then that way the title company knows what you're doing too. So you get the novation indemnification agreement, and then you get the attorney in fact signed. Okay. So those are the three instruments you're getting signed on the front end.
All right. Now you have equitable interest in this deal.
Correct.
And you also have an attorney in fact.
Correct. To act as seller.
So you can kind of act as the attorney for the deal, which
Correct.
gives you, like, you can sign things and enter into an agreement. The seller's giving you permission to sign things kind of for
Correct.
them. Is that the way you'd phrase it?
Yeah, for them. Exactly. And
Okay.
we're fully transparent with the seller about the process and what we're doing. So that way we're kind of like almost partnering with the seller. And we have a few scripts that we go.
That's really important, because I like that analogy. You're almost partnering with the seller because you're open with them and you're telling them what you're doing, right?
Correct. Unlike wholesaling, where you're keeping the seller in the dark that you're selling the contract. You're keeping the buyer in the dark how much you're making. There's all this gray area. You have to walk this fine line. And that's why deals fall apart so much. Sellers get bent out of shape because they find out that you're signing the contract. And it's like, it was such a problem. And with Novations, you don't have that because you're fully transparent from the start all the way to the finish.
All right. So give some example. Well, all right. I want to ask about an example numbers of an example deal, typical deal. So now you have it under contract. You have an addendum signed, attorney in fact with the seller. You go to a realtor, a listing agent, a local listing agent in that market. Are you doing anything to the house to fix it up, clean it up?
Occasionally. So what you do, there's two ways of doing novations. The way that most people teach it is like novation flipping. You go in there and you remodel the property and then go list it. We don't do that. We do it like novation wholesaling. So think of it as wholesaling without taking possession. So but the only thing we do got to fix sometimes is do it during the inspection. Depending on the financing, you might have to make repairs to pass the financing contingencies. Okay. So, but a little key nugget here is if you list it for only conventional financing, cash or conventional, if it's a conventional buyer, you can do a buyer credit. You don't even have to repair the property. But if you do FHA and VA, then you do have to do the repairs to the property, whatever the inspector is telling you to do. But we do the bare minimum the inspector's telling us to do to pass the financing contingencies. We're not going in there and making this an HGTV type house.
Right.
Yeah, we're not doing the novation flip model. It's novation wholesaling. All
right. So you're doing this in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and where do you live, by the way?
Phoenix, Arizona.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that realtor in Tulsa is like, who are you? Right. We need to sign this listing agreement paperwork stuff with the seller, with the owner. How does that discussion go with them?
So you have to be very transparent with the realtor, exactly what you're doing. You'll let them know that you have an attorney in fact, and that you're partnering with the seller to sell their property. But we're opening the conversations just like we opened our conversations when we're doing wholesaling. We'd call them up and be like, hey, we saw you sold a property over on 123 Main Street. We're just wondering if you have any pocket buyers. We got a property under contract over on 124 Main Street. Do you have any buyers? And then they'd be like, oh, yes, and it's a property. And so, well, would you also be interested in listing the property for us? We have an attorney in fact with the seller. We're partnering with the seller. They don't mind us listing the property on the MLS. We're acting as if we're the seller, and this is a novation. Some realtors know what novations are. You'll be surprised. It's taught in retail.
Yeah.
And they go yes or no. And what we do is sometimes you might have to call 3 or 4 realtors to take the listing because some of them won't know and they don't understand and they don't want to touch it, right? Because it's like, oh, that's a little too weird for me. But you will find one that'll take the listing.
Nice.
And so you just full transparency is the key. Like I can't express that enough. Like transparency with the seller, transparency with the realtors, transparency with the buyer, the title company, everybody. And it makes the job a lot easier.
So you might need to make a couple phone calls, but you will find a realtor that will do it for you, which I love using realtors, by the way, guys.
I do too. They're hungry.
The realtors will do all this work for you and you pay them only if they sell the house.
Right. They become like a team member of your company, an employee. It's great.
Because like you could get a whole dispositions department. You're going to pay somebody, right? And you need to outsource it. So why not outsource it to an agent? This also, I'm imagining, solves this whole brokering, dealing without a license
you got it
as well, right?
You nailed it. Boom.
Because I mean, these states are cracking down on what they call illegal wholesaling, and we don't need to argue that, but like they've got their in a wad because these wholesalers are making too much money. And so they're just upset that we're not using agents or you're not licensed. They want you to be licensed or they want you to use an agent, to use a realtor. I get frustrated with it when I talk about it, but
I know
this solves all of that, doesn't it? Because you're using realtors to sell them and you're putting the property on the MLS and you're completely open and honest and transparent with the seller. Everybody knows what's going on.
Everyone knows what's going on. Exactly.
Nice. Okay. So, you'll find a realtor, they list it, you sign the listing agreements, you negotiate the commissions that agent gets, the listing agent and the buyer's agent. Okay. So talk a little bit about on the buyer side. I'm sorry, on the A to B side where you're buying it with the seller, right?
Okay.
How does that conversation work where you're kind of partnering with them? So do they know how much profit you're trying to make and then they're going to get whatever is above that? How does that?
They do know, and we let them know that the number they're getting to them is net to them, and that we're going to be stacking in the realtor fees, the title fees, any projected inspection repairs, and marketing fees, and of course our fee. And the scripting with the seller, depending on first when you call the seller, you want to lead with your typical cash offer scripting, your typical John Martinez negotiations, trying to go in there and figure out why they want to sell the property. What's their picture perfect, all that stuff, right? If you find out that their need price is too much, and I say need price, not ask price, because ask price means you could probably still negotiate deeper. If the need price is too much, you're just going to say, hey, Mr. Seller, unfortunately, we are not your buyer, because as investors, our goal is to try to make a marginal profit. However, we have an alternative program that would be a good fit for you. We call it our concierge service. Seller's like, what's that? Well, with that said, as investors, we excel at bringing buyers who are willing to pay top dollar, considering we have to sell our fix and flips to an M buyer. We accomplish this through a network of buyers, realtors, and the MLS. Unlike other investors who may lowball you and ask you to take your money in increments of 10, 20, or 30 years, you'll receive your money in 2 to 3 months. If we're capable of bringing a new buyer with a guarantee of your $300K asking price net to you, would that sound like something you'd be interested in? So that's the pitch on the front end if we found out the need price is too much. Now, we have a back end pitch where if we get the negotiated offer down to a wholesale pricing, what we'll do is we'll send the paperwork and we'll send the novation paperwork. Obviously, we've already negotiated the wholesale price. And when we send that paperwork, I say, hey, Mr. Seller, we have great news. We have this new program called our concierge service. Now, not many properties qualify for this service, but I pushed really hard to get your property qualified. And the seller's gonna be like, well, what's the concierge service? Well, as investors, we excel at bringing buyers who are willing to pay more, considering we have to sell our fix and flips to the end buyer. We accomplish this through a network of buyers, realtors, MLS. So we would be able to give you an additional $3,000 more for your property by doing the concierge service. Would that sound like you see something you'd be interested in? So we're flipping the script on the back end to get a novation deal at wholesale pricing. This is where we get our biggest spreads and our deepest deals.
So you're negotiating a price that the seller is going to want to get. Let's say the house is worth $350. Their bottom line number is $300, but it needs like 20 grand or 30 grand in work. There's not a lot of room in there for you. So your cash offer might be 250. Their bottom line number is 300. So that's when you would talk about the concierge service.
Correct. And we're still trying to, negotiate the best we can off that 300. Maybe we can get it at 290, maybe at 280, and then pitch the concierge service. We're going to do our best to still negotiate what we can. And this is not a crutch for poor negotiation skills. And I really express that, because some people, even when in my company, when I taught this to my acquisition team, they were using it as a crutch for poor negotiation skills. It's not that. This is just an extra tool in the tool belt. But yeah, then you're going to go in and you're going to pitch the front end novation conversation to them and try to convert them to let you to novate the deal. Never call it a novation with the seller though. It's always concierge service or because they don't understand novations.
So you're do you ever tell them, like, or is this the conversation, just to clarify it in my mind? I'll get you 300, but anything above that I keep. That's kind of how it is.
That's kind of how it is. Correct. And we let them know.
You don't tell them I'm going to make, my minimum fee on these.
We don't tell them like a fee. We don't give them an exact number. We just let them know, hey, we're going to go ahead and market the property, over what we're buying it from you for, because we're going to have to pay the realtor fees. We're going to pay the title fees. We're going to pay all our marketing fees, our inspection repairs, and our fee. But don't worry about that, because the buyer's paying all those fees. He'll be the one bringing that money to the table. What our price net to you is going to stay net to you.
Okay. That would seem fair to them. Do you ever, like, because I knew a guy once out of, it doesn't matter where he's from, but he would always negotiate, like every single deal, he would negotiate with the seller to partner on the deal with the seller. And he would say, listen, I'm going to make a lot of money on this deal, and he sees the seller kind of say, oh, and then he says, but what if we partnered on this deal? How would that be like? How would that feel like to you? And then it's negotiate. That's what he negotiates, not the price. Yeah. He negotiates the partnership split. And he says, what if I gave you because I'm going to put a lot of work into this, and I'm going to do this and this and this. What if I gave you 25% of my profits? He kind of sometimes starts there. Like whatever I make, the more you'll make. Or it could even be, if it's a big enough deal, or if he feels like he's losing, he's out. What if we just split the profits 50-50? And so he gets from the bottom line number of whatever the seller wants, and then says, all right, anything above that, let's just split it 50-50. Would that be fair? I mean, who would say no to that?
I love that. It's a great model.
So could you use Novations then using that strategy?
Absolutely. 100%. And we've never done that on the front end like that. But we've done it, like, for example, we've listed the property. Seller sees that we're listing for $100,000 more than what we locked the property up for. And then they call and be like, hey, I know you understand that there's realtor fees and buyer costs and all, but really $100,000. And then we might get into, we've done it before where we've gotten in negotiations there that we're going to be splitting some of the proceeds with them to help them.
Yeah.
I
wonder if the seller knew that you were splitting the profits with them 50-50, maybe that bottom line number can go down even more. So like if their bottom line number was 300 and you said to them, listen, what if we negotiate? I mean, what if we partnered on this deal and we'll just split the profit 50-50? I'm going to do all the work of, cleaning it up, getting it ready to sell, taking the trash out, or just getting it retail ready, whatever that could be. Right. And after my expenses, we'll just split the profits 50-50. And then that might even get the seller to bring their bottom line number down even more.
That's a great strategy.
The more money I make, the more money you make. Would that be fair? Sellers, it's hard to say no to a question like that. Would that be fair to you?
Yep.
Interesting. Wow. I like this.
Yeah. I might try implementing some of that more on the front end and create a script for that and just see how it flows. We have done deals where, like, the seller, where we've gone in, like, seller's like, well, the only reason why I need to get out of this quickly is because I can't afford the mortgage no more. And I'm like, well, okay, how about we pay the mortgage while we're doing the novation? And we've done stuff like that before.
The guy that I learned this from, his name is Rick Otten. And I'm looking at, so I did 2 or 3 podcasts with him. This was way back about 4 years ago. And if anybody is interested, go look at realestateinvestingmastery.com, my website for the podcast, realestateinvestingmastery.com, and look up Rick Otten Otton, and that's just how he does all of his deals, especially virtual deals, because he's buying them on terms many times with owner financing or taking over the mortgage in other countries. So he's doing these deals in Greece, in Spain, are two of his big countries that he's doing these deals in.
Wow.
But that's his approach, especially when he's that far away, when he's in Australia, when he's in England, and he's negotiating deals in other countries using local realtors and however they do it. He has found it's just so much easier to negotiate the price and the terms when it's a partnership with the seller. Now, I don't know if he uses Novations in those countries, but it's a great negotiating concept. I think this is fascinating. This solves so many problems. Number one, it solves the whole brokering, without a license thing that people are freaking out about right now. And Illinois has said you can't wholesale without a license, or you can't do deals without a license. I heard that just today. I heard that North Carolina, I think it's starting to really crack down on this. Oklahoma's trying to.
Yeah.
So, nice. Now, do you have your license, Corey? Do you recommend people get their license?
I'm licensed here in Arizona. Although I don't utilize it. I got licensed in the beginning of my real estate journey so I could list my own flips. And that's why I got it. And now I don't even list my own flips. I do about, 3 to 5 flips at a time at any given time here locally, just on the side. It's kind of one of my side hustles. And I have a realtor who lists them. I don't even do it myself. But next year I might let it expire.
Well, does it help you kind of get your foot in the door with other agents when you're talking?
It does. It's done a lot of great things for my real estate journey. Like giving me the MLS access, getting access to the MLS paperwork and understanding all that. Yeah, and talking with realtors and brokers and just understanding like how realtors walk, right? How they walk and talk. It's a different industry than what we play in, and so to really understand it, it's been tremendously helpful in my real estate journey.
Nice. Okay, so you have a webinar that I took a snapshot, and I wanted to talk about the 7 steps to 7 figures with Novations. And do you have it open there? We can talk about it here.
Yeah.
Would you mind just walking through those 7 steps with us?
Absolutely. So the first step is you're disqualifying the seller from a cash offer, which what we kind of just talked about with the scripting. Either you disqualify them and you pitch the novation on the front end, or you can negotiate the cash offer, send the paperwork, and then pitch the novation on the back end. And then at that point, you're sending all the agreements, the novation agreement, the attorney in fact, getting them to sign that. That's step 3. Step 4 is get pictures and list the property in the MLS. The way we get pictures now is getting the local realtors boots in the ground to take pictures for us. So we'll get a novation locked up. We're going to call those realtors in that local market. And then when we get someone to take the listing, they become like our employee. Now they're going to go over there and take pictures for us. They're going to organize walkthroughs. They're boots in the ground for any problems in the property. They're helping conduct the inspection. They're helping conduct the appraisal. It's everything, right? And that's why we love using realtors. We also do the flat fee listing way too, but that's more problematic in my field than the realtors, except you save a little bit of money. But for me, realtors are worth their weight in gold for this. So after you get the pictures, after you list in the MLS, you're going to get a buyer in place. You're going to sign up. You're going to sign the offer as a seller. And once you do that, you're going to record what's called a notice of interest on the property. A notice of interest does 2 things. It clouds title like a memorandum of contract does. So that way you're protected on the property from something happening, seller going dark, seller trying to sell to somebody else. And it also allows you the capability of getting paid when we close, because this acts like a lien on the property. And the way we get paid is by a lien release. And this is how the financing companies approve us. That's why wholesaling is so difficult, because to a finance buyer, because the mortgage companies never approve it because it's an assignment. You're not on a chain of title. They say it's an issue. But with a lien payoff, all mortgage companies approve lien payoffs. A mechanic's lien's a lien. A mortgage is a lien. So they always approve any kind of lien payoff. So we'll record the notice of interest, and then basically you're going to have the seller come in and sign the final HUD. With the attorney in fact way, the seller has to sign the final HUD. With a power of attorney, you can sign the final HUD. But there's a lot of unethical area that I don't like about the power of attorney stuff. But seller signs the final HUD, and then you're going to record a release of interest. The release of interest is going to release that notice of interest lien. You're going to instruct the title company how much it costs to do the release, and that is your fee for the novation.
I love it. So you're getting paid with a lien, which makes it easier for your end buyer to get conventional or FHA or
Correct.
VA financing.
Yep.
Matt Andrews is in the house. What's up, Matt Andrews? Do you know Corey? Corey, do you know Matt?
Come on, Matt. I know him. I got him on Facebook.
Who doesn't know Matt Andrews?
Yeah.
Love you, Matt. Good dude. From Family Mastermind. Okay,
oh yeah, that's how I know him. Okay, I know Matt.
Yeah,
Andrews.
come on.
Yeah. Yep.
See the hand signal thing? This is his.
Absolutely. We had talked about a month ago. I might be joining Family Mastermind actually.
Oh, you should.
Yeah.
I've been in it almost over a year now.
Yeah.
But so back to this. The cool thing about this is you are getting paid as with a lien release. So the instrument is it's like a normal loan or a mortgage or some kind of debt recorded against the property, which makes it easier now for FHA or VA financing or conventional financing to pay you. The normal traditional way of wholesaling, it's always been a challenge. You have to double close, which costs a bunch of money.
Right.
And then you have to have two separate closings, an A to B and a B to C, and then getting the money, the transactional funding with that, which costs more money, trying to hide, what your purchase price is, what your sale price is.
I hate that.
Or you can't do assignments when you're dealing with banks. That's another pain in the butt, right? So this solves a lot of problems, makes the closing easier, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. And the transparency, man, just from A to Z, it makes the deals run so much smoother. And wholesaling, man, it's brain damage sometimes. And we got to the point we were doing at one point last year, we were doing about 40 to 60 deals a month. I mean, we were doing a lot of volume. We went through a small shutdown at the end of the year. I revamped my business, but right now we got like 32 deals on the board. But when you're doing that many deals, man, in wholesaling, especially when deals are falling apart because there's no transparency and it's brain damage, man. It is.
Talk a little bit more, just real quickly, about what are some of the common objections that a seller might have when you first bring this thing up? I know you're not calling it an ovation with them, but what are some of the questions or the objections a seller might have?
So one popular objection, and then we get this in wholesaling too, is, well, why don't I just list the property with my sister? That's great. You can go list your property with a sister. That is perfectly fine. We just want to let you know all your options. So we always push them towards their objections. It's the whole John Martinez stuff, right?
Yeah.
Push them towards their objections. Let them know, yeah, you can absolutely list it with your sister.
And you should.
And you should. But understand, you're going to have to go through the retail process. You're going to have to deal with the inspection. You're going to have to deal with the appraisal. You're going to have to deal with the title. Where in our concierge service, you don't deal with any of that, including the inspection repairs. We'll do the repairs for you. So and we could probably get you just about close to the same amount of money as your sister's going to get you. But you have your options. So we push them towards that. Right. So that's one of the biggest objections you're going to get up front. But we get that in wholesaling too. It's like the same thing. I can just go list it with a realtor. Okay, then go list it with a realtor. That's great.
And you got to, these sellers have to be kind of motivated, right?
Yeah, they're calling us for convenience. That's the biggest factor, right? They're calling us because they want convenience. They want ease. They don't want to deal with a retail process. So we're still offering that convenience for them, except for we're going to handle the retail process for them, right? So there's still the convenience factor. It's just not cash offer will close next week. But that's the ultimate end of the day is most of them are calling them for. Now, every once in a while, you do get the seller. They do need that money next week. Something happened in their life that they have to have the money or they lose the property or there's something going on. Then novation doesn't work. You're going to have to go say, okay, here's my cash offer. This is what we're going to do. I'm sorry, so you do need to have a little bit of time to do novations. So depending on the motivation factor is how you got to determine what your offers are. So, but
I wonder if you could, give the seller two options. I can pay cash for this.
You can't. We do that. We've done that.
Yeah. Or if you want to partner on the deal and, I can offer you more, but we'll split the profits.
That's absolutely. You can do that. Absolutely. And we're kind of doing a little bit of that now with our back end novation offer, getting the cash deal first, because some of them might go, no, I don't want to do the concierge service. Just give me the cash offer. Okay, great. We're going to go that route. Yeah. But some of them are like, oh yeah, I'll take $5,000 more. Sure. Let's go ahead and do the concierge service.
Okay. So on the novation agreement, do you have a deadline or do you say you're guaranteeing that it's going to close in 2 months, or how do you work that?
So we're putting a time limit on there, but we're once again, transparency with the seller is key. Let them know, hey, average days on market in your town is about 45 days. So just let you know, it could take 50 to 60 days to get this wrapped up for you. We're going to try for quicker, but we're going to put 60 days on the agreement, and then hopefully we can get it closed quicker. But just letting you know, it could take a little longer too. So it's it's all on your upfront conversation. So that way, when you get to the 40th day and you still haven't sold the property, you can call them and have that conversation again with them. But I mean, most of the time, when we're listing our properties, we're trying to list it typically like 10% of the average as is comp to try to move that property as quickly as possible off the MLS. So the key is just trying to move inventory, especially when we got 30 something deals right now, and most of them are novations, trying to move as quickly as possible. So, but it's just that upfront conversation with the seller, let them know, because they know we're bringing a buyer to the table, and that the average days on market for your area is about 30 days, 40 days, 50 days. Now in Phoenix, it's like 7 days. It's ridiculous in Phoenix right now. So I could literally conduct a novation in like 30 days here. It's all market dependent, but in some of these rural markets, that's where you really have to have that full transparency conversation with them.
So you can do this in small towns.
Yep.
You can also do it in major markets, but right now you're targeting any market where hedge funds are buying properties in, right?
Yeah, we did that because when we relaunched the company, what we're doing is we're having the acquisitions, lock up all the deals. And now obviously we're trying to get novations first. Always try to get novations first, wholesale second. But even still, if it's a novation, what we're doing is we're presenting all our deals to hedge funds first to see if they will buy the deal before we go through the novation process. Because hedge funds right now are paying retail. And it's absolutely crazy what they're buying and doing right now. I mean, the market is hot as crap. So we're trying to make that one of our exit strategies before we go ahead and conduct the novation. Now, if they say no to the property, then we're doing the novation, right? So that's just, we wanted to make that one of our first steps. So now I'm targeting all my marketing around counties where hedge funds are buying in.
One of the reasons why I like the small towns is, and I don't know how to do PPC. I would love to learn someday, but one of the reasons why I love small towns is direct mail works really well there.
It does.
So you can get 3-4 times the response rate in a small town as you can in a big town. Yep. One of the things I learned from a friend of mine, Larry Goins, is, he can sell anything as long as it's on a paved road and there's a Dollar General or a store like that within, I think what's his rule? 20-30 minute drive or something like that. It's on a paved road, right? And it has a Dollar General or a Piggly Wiggly. I don't know if you know what a Piggly Wiggly is.
I know what a Piggly Wiggly is. That's a back east thing.
Yeah. But there is so much mattress money in these small markets as well, and a low inventory. It's a lot easier than people would think to sell houses in small markets, and virtually no competition.
It's funny you talking about that. I remember listening to one of your podcasts, and I think it was with Sean Terry, 2 years ago.
Yeah, we talked about
before I went nationwide, and that podcast was one of the reasons why I was like, you know what, that was one of another deciding factors to go nationwide.
Yeah. So much opportunity, so much, and we're not talking, we're talking counties that have at least 100,000 people in it.
Yep.
But you're going to see 3-4 times the response rate with your direct mail. I was just talking to somebody who's getting 1/4% response rate with his direct mail. Talking to Larry just the other day as well. And what we're seeing in small towns, 3 to 5% response rates with our direct mail. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there. And I love this novation strategy because it works really, really well in those small towns when you can have, when you have to rely on the realtors to sell these deals.
Absolutely.
Cool. We got some questions here. Where's my cursor there? Pointer. Matt says, keep up the good work, guys. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Question from Mario. Do you find hedge funds in small markets too?
No, we have not. That's why we target, bigger markets. I would say probably 250,000 or more now. If we get a deal in a small market, we're just going to go for the novation. We're just going to novate it and then sell it in the MLS.
Nice. Sharon's asking to find small town. I'll just say the small towns that we like to target are 2 or 3 counties outside of a big MSA.
Yep.
So if you've got Dallas, Fort Worth, that's like, or what's another example? Nashville, like that's, oh no, Atlanta. It's like 6 different counties, right? So you kind of want to go outside 2 to 3 counties outside the MSA, which is the big window. And you're probably not going to find hedge funds that are buying out there, but there still is a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of demand for houses in those markets.
A lot less competition.
A lot less competition. Great. People are asking, hey, how can I get more information about Novations? This sounds really cool. I want to send you guys right here, novationjoe.com. Corey has a fantastic course. It's not cheap. I do get a commission from referring people to this, but I don't know anybody else right now that's doing more deals or teaching it better than Corey is. So if you're interested and you want more information, go to novationjoe.com. Depending on when you're listening to this, it might take you to a different page. But I mean, this just doing one deal is going to more than pay for itself. Getting this. And you have to make sure you get the right paperwork. You got to make sure you're approaching the seller the right way. You're telling them the right things. You're approaching the realtors the right way. You're saying the right things to them. Got to make sure your paperwork is in place. And again,
paperwork
Corey,
is the most important part.
Yeah.
I spent thousands on drafting that up. And I mean, that right there is worth the price of admission.
Do not use paperwork you download from YouTube or forums on Bigger Pockets. Right.
Yeah.
Make sure this is a really, really smart investment. Real quick, I want to wrap this up, Corey. What are some of the mistakes people need to be aware of, to avoid? What are the mistakes people need to avoid when doing novations and these kinds of deals?
Well, I can tell you about my biggest one right now that I'm going through. It's in Illinois. You got to be careful out in these markets. I listed a Novation deal with and I'll say the listing company's name because everyone needs to be aware of them. It's called List with Freedom. And we closed the deal. We made $42,000 on the deal. Seller was happy. We're happy. A month later, the real estate investigator calls us, and he's investigating us for fraud because List with Freedom was under investigation for fraud.
Really?
So yeah, so he's like, well, we found your file with List of Freedom. So that has been we're still dealing with that. Had to get an attorney involved. So be careful on if you're going to use a flat fee listing company. That's why we like local realtors. You know, you don't have that issue. So be careful where you're listing the properties and what markets. Some of these markets, like we had mentioned earlier, are not very friendly because what they're like, well, you wholesaled the property, didn't you? Like, no, I didn't wholesale it. I novated it. Well, did you go on chain on title? I was like, no, I didn't go on chain of title. Well, then you wholesaled. I'm like, no, I didn't. So that's why I got the attorney involved. So be careful in markets like that. Like you were saying, Oklahoma is one of them. Illinois is one of them. And I think maybe North Carolina. So, and then be careful with the flat fee listing companies because they're not all, I guess, that ethical. I don't know. It's crazy. They're on investigation for fraud, which has been, yeah.
Well, it's the realtor monopoly that's trying to crack down on this.
It is.
And they don't like the flat fee brokers.
They don't because I mean, they're so cheap and mass volume and it's just, they're taking over the market space. So, another big mistake is if you're starting this out and you don't have a lot of capital and you don't have a high financial risk threshold is what I like to call it, don't list the properties for FHA and VA. Just do cash and conventional because the conventional, like I mentioned earlier, you can do a buyer credit. So if you need a new roof on the property, with conventional financing, you just do a buyer credit and you don't have to pay for it. It just comes off the purchase price. But with FHA and VA, you have to make the repairs. You got to go in there, make the repairs. You got to get a follow-up inspection to pass that financing contingency. So doing FHA and VA is more of an advanced strategy, I feel like. And we do them. I got one in Wyoming right now. I put $17,000 on, but I'm going to make $55,000 on the back end. But I also have a higher risk, financial risk threshold. So just know your risk threshold. That's very important. If it's 5,000 or less, then you know exactly what to be looking for and don't do FHA and VA. So that's another mistake, you can make early on in this journey, especially if you don't have a lot of capital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And guys, listen, with any strategy, there's going to be mistakes you can make. You got to make sure you do it the right way. Make sure that you're doing it above board. And the thing I love about this strategy is you're fully open and transparent with everybody. The seller signs off on everything. There's no shady under the counter under the table type of dealings going on.
Ah,
Everybody
it's the
knows
world.
what's going on.
Yeah, it's the world of wholesaling.
Nice. All right. Corey, this has been so good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Truly am blessed and honored to be here.
Nice. If people want to reach out to you, how can they do that? Just
As Facebook's the greatest place, man. I'm very active on social media. Corey Geary or Instagram, the Corey Geary. I love playing on social media. Always trying to deliver content on there. And you could DM me. It's me who answers the DM. It's not a VA. So that's like probably the best spot. And yeah, man.
nice. Cool. Thank you very much, guys. Go check out novationjoe.com or look up Corey Geary in Facebooks. And man, I appreciate you, Corey. Thank you so much for
Appreciate
being
you
on the
too,
show,
Joe.
man.
Thank you much, man.
We'll see you guys. Bye-bye.
Yep.